Hello and welcome to another episode of the Throwin Bones MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Gerber, and with me, very special guest,
Kyle Wheeler.
There you go.
What's up? Good to be back.
The perpetual co-host returns.
Let's go, Gerb.
Kyle said he wanted to hop on and talk about this one, so we have him back. Thank you for coming, Kyle.
Oh, my pleasure. Good to be back. It's been a while.
Well, I'll let you start the conversation then. You want to start it off with your thoughts on the main event?
Oh, yeah. This Saturday, UFC 250, we got a banging main event. We got our hometown girl, Felicia Spencer, Canada Pride. And we got her going up against the greatest to ever do it in women's MMA, Amanda Nunes. That is going to be an excellent fight. Really looking forward to it. I know me and you are excited to see our Canadian girl, Felicia, get in there.
Right, and as you know, Amanda Nunes is probably my favorite fighter, so either way I win. We either get a new Canadian champ or I get to see Amanda Nunes do her thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be quite the treat either way. I don't know exactly how this one's going to go. What's your prediction for Saturday, Adam?
I don't think I can make a prediction. If I had to go with someone, I'm obviously going to go with Nunes. But I think that Spencer poses some pretty tough challenges that match up pretty directly with weaknesses that we've seen from Amanda in the past. So I'm going to... And this is exactly what I said last week. Is all I said was, Burns has some skills that could give Woodley some trouble. And he went out there and he 50-44'd him. So I'm kind of seeing the same thing with this matchup, Felicia Spencer has got a hell of a chin on her, as we saw in the Cyborg fight. She can take tons of punishment and keep going and keep being effective in the fight and keep posing a threat. And what we've seen from Amanda Nunes, even in her last performance against Gerald Meerschaert, is that, she wasn't able to put her away on the feet. She got a little bit tired trying so hard to put her away on the feet. And so she had to resort to her grappling and essentially dominated the whole fight with the grappling. And which is essentially exactly what Woodley did to Wonderboy in their fights, right? And so kind of the same thing I said about last week's fight is that if it does get to a point where she's exhausted all of her options striking, she's not going to have that grappling to fall back on. She's not going to be the bigger fighter. She's not going to be the more physical fighter in there because Felicia Spencer's a true featherweight, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a tough fight.
Yeah, and also, Amanda Nunes, she's a great counter striker. Like Chris Cyborg, she came running at her, throwing everything she got because that's what Chris Cyborg does. She was the baddest for so many years, and we know that most likely Felicia's not gonna take that approach. She's gonna be in there, and she's probably gonna be trying to go into the later rounds with Nunes to try and gas her out and winning those grappling exchanges, like you're saying.
Yeah, so I see this being a fight where Amanda Nunes needs to fight very smart from the beginning. And if she comes out guns and blazing like she's just going to knock Felicia Spencer out immediately, I think she's going to waste some very valuable gas that she's going to need for the whole 5 rounds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing Amanda in there too, with such a big featherweight, right? Obviously she fought Cyborg and she's fought bigger girls, but it's going to be interesting after fighting someone like Gerald Meerschaert going up against, this hard-headed, Canadian girl. I saw Felicia Spencer fight live, right, against Cyborg. And just watching that, it was a little victory being able to go as long as she did. She made it all 3 rounds.
Never really slowed down either. Never looked like she was getting tired.
Yeah, she was in the fight, and she was wearing the punches, and lots of people can't wear those punches, so it makes this fight really interesting, just with that fact alone. Right.
Well, you could see in Nunes' last fight against Durandamy, you could say she came out real hot and she had success, but then, Gerald Durandamy is no slouch on the feet either. Or Jermaine, sorry.
Yeah.
and she tagged her a couple times, and it really made Nunes question where she wanted to be in that fight. I'm thinking she can't come out and learn that lesson that way against Spencer, because she might just get drug into those deep waters. And like we mentioned before, Germaine de Randamie has almost non-existent ground game. So that was a pretty easy fallback for Amanda Nunes in that fight that she's not going to have here.
Yeah, definitely.
So if Nunes does win this fight, I don't really see it being a knockout. I think she has to fight the way she fought against Shevchenko. I think it's got to be a very tactical kickboxing match.
Pick her apart. Yeah. Pick her apart. Move around. Like it's kind of one of those matchups too, where if you watch their fights, you're gonna watch them and you're gonna see Amanda Nunes' last fights, knockout, and you're gonna go, wow, this girl looks like really good, like really explosive and all that. And yeah, she's powerful, like she's amazing. But then you'd watch somebody like Felicia Spencer, and it really is like like the technique in Amanda Nunes, and then it's just the pure grit and determination that I honestly think that's kind of the only way Felicia has a chance to win. But I think that is honestly enough for her to get the job done, just because she is such a gritty fighter.
Yeah, she has such insane durability, it seems. Like if there's anything we can give her credit for, it's obviously her grappling game, but I think it's her physicality of being a true featherweight, her durability, being able to take damage and keep going, and her gas tank, being able to keep dealing and taking damage like that while also, not really losing a step in her own game. I think that's really something that can't be undersold, especially against a fighter like Nunes, who, those are really the walls that she's run into in the past.
Yeah, definitely. It's basically, if Felicia's able to eat some of her shots and, get a hold of her and she can win like the grappling exchanges, it really does make it for a completely different fight. And we could see Amanda Nunes, dealing with something she hasn't dealt with before in a very long time, right? So it's quite interesting.
Right, and I was honestly surprised with how hot she came out against de Randamie, because that seemed like very much old Nunes strategy. She just seemed so confident in her ability. And it really almost cost her. You could tell she really sort of ran out of gas there, and if de Randamie had more of a grappling game, that fight would have been trouble. Like, that fight would have been a lot of trouble.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's hard to call this one with any certainty, but it's also really, really hard for me to say that Felicia Spencer has any sort of clear path to victory in this fight.
Yeah. That's kind of, I would agree with that statement exactly. Literally, it's Amanda Nunes on paper. She should win this fight, but like I'm saying, there's that little chance, it's, you can't obviously win a fight with just your chin, but Felicia Spencer might be able to just do enough to get a hold of her and tire her out and make it for an interesting night.
That's where it is going to get interesting, is when they tie up. We're going to really see what the dynamic of this fight is going to be the second that they lock up, either in the clinch, or we're going to see if Felicia Spencer has the takedown capability to get Nunes to the ground reliably. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. I definitely think, I agree with you. I don't think this one will be a knockout per se. I could definitely see this fight being a bit different from what we've been seeing, and a 5-round decision, to be honest with you.
Oh. Yeah,
has Felicia ever fought 5 rounds before?
No,
does she have any championship experience?
Definitely no 5 rounds. I'm looking at her Tapology right now, and it's not even giving me her record. I was going to see what her last few wins were. I'm pretty sure she's only had 2 fights in the UFC, right? Was it just her win over Anderson?
Her only loss, and then I forget her last opponent, what her name was. But.
Well, she fought Cyborg, right? And wasn't Cyborg her last fight?
No, Cyborg was her first fight in the UFC.
No, her first fight was against Megan Anderson. She submitted Megan Anderson. I'm pretty sure she fought Megan Anderson, and then she fought Cyborg.
Yeah. Okay, so then, her second fight was Cyborg. Then she lost that.
So that's such a discrepancy in opponents. Like that can't even really tell you very much. Like you can't really learn a whole lot from. Like she beat Megan Anderson and lost to Cyborg. Like so would most other female fighters, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell anything really from just those two opponents. We've just got so much more tape on Nunes of her weaknesses and her strengths. It's really an attitude thing. I think if Nunes comes out sprinting, like she's just going to run through her, I think she's going to hit a wall that she wasn't expecting. And whether that wall is just more grappling proficient or just more durable than she expected, I can't say that for certain, but something in me has given me a feeling that this is going to be a much harder fight than anyone is giving it credit for Nunes.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that for sure. I'm excited, and we'll have to see. It's been a while since Canada's had a champ, so it'd be nice.
It would be, yeah. You want to move on to the next one then? We got Rafael Assunção versus Cody Garbrandt. What do you think of that one?
Oh, I'm really excited for this one. Obviously, for me, I'm a huge Cody Garbrandt fan. Like, it sucks the way his career went. He looked so good when he beat Dominic Cruz, and since that, just lost. Is it 3 knockouts in a row?
Yeah, 2 to Dillashaw and then 1 to Munoz.
Yeah. And, it was just really tough to see because he looked like such a promising prospect. So he's taking quite a bit of time off, and it'll be very interesting to see, what he's been working on, and how the time off will maybe help his chin out. I have no idea. It just sucks. I really like that guy.
Well, hasn't he had back issues? Isn't that why he's been out?
He's had quite a few injuries, but it just seems to get wobbled quite a bit, and it's just kind of.
Oh, it was kidney issues. That's what he had. Because this fight's been canceled already.
But he had back issues before the Dillashaw fight, and he had to get a bunch of stem cells done. It's been a rough ride for him. And then he won that belt, and ever since that, it was just loss.
Do you think he should be fighting someone a little bit less complete and put together than Assunção? Do you think he should be maybe fighting a little bit farther down in the rankings for this comeback fight? Do you think Assunção is a tall order, considering he's coming off 3 knockout losses?
It's tough to say because, he, in his last fight, it was just right hand.
Right. That's single one of his last 3 losses has been the exact same knockout.
And it's just like him, just biting down and just going for it, and
and his opponent counters the right hand, right? Yeah.
So I mean, you could say that. It depends what Garbrandt we see. I'd be very interested to see what coaches he's been working with, because I know there's been some issues with that in the past as well.
Yeah, with Buchholz leaving.
Yeah, exactly, and that's kind of when he started to just be throwing haymakers, and he's just brawling. He's not. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just if he falls into that against Assunção, it's over. It's another one of these guys where he can't get away with that at all.
Yeah, and it's anywhere it goes too. Another one of those guys. I'd say Cody has the advantage on the feet, but it's maybe.
Yeah,
can't even say that.
Depending on how he fights, right? Yeah,
has him in the jiu-jitsu, so.
Yeah.
It's so sad, man. Just thinking back to honestly, every time Cody Garbrandt's name comes back, I just think of this video, and it was the rise and fall.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was just watching his performance. He's dancing around, just looked phenomenal against Dominic Cruz, and then to see him come out and just kind of just swinging for the fences. It's just what happened, man.
Is that? At what point do you think that the Dominic Cruz fight is just sort of right time, right place? The fact that he was working with coaches that had been studying Dominic for the past 10 years. that he had so many teammates who had fought Dominic in the past, you know?
It's just like, but still being able to execute the way he
incredibly
did,
impressive. But let's say for a fourth time, he goes out there, he starts loading up on right-hand haymakers, and Assunção beats him to the punch and knocks him out with the same counter that he's lost to in his last 4 fights. At what point does that Dominic Cruz victory start looking a little bit different?
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. It's already been looking different, right? So if that happens again, it's just like, what the hell? Like, what possibly went wrong?
Or was it just magic for that one night, right?
The thing. Yeah, like, sorry, what was that?
Or was he just magic for that one night, right? Was it just the perfect storm of coaches and him being trained essentially since his inception as an MMA fighter to be the anti-Dominic Cruz for the gym? Oh, yeah. Got the dog. Yeah, it's all right. We can keep going.
Yeah, I think that definitely Team Alpha Male's rivalry with Dominic Cruz definitely helped out with them, and like, obviously, TJ Dillashaw was able to exploit, like, his weaknesses. He said it all along. Like, all he has is, like, a right hand. So it's, I think he wasn't too worried. And,
he still whooped him, but then everyone else he fights, he seems to be proving that correct, which is so bizarre. Like, it's just such a mind-bending situation where someone can show that much discipline and that much fight IQ, and then go to, losing the exact same way in his last 3 fights, completely due to tactical error, right? And lack of discipline. It's like a completely opposite fighter. It's like he got possessed for one night. Exactly.
It's just like because like in his fights too, like he does land, and when he does land, it does hurt the guy, but he lands, he hurts the guy, and it's almost like what Daniel Cormier was saying, like, once he lands and he, like, marks the guy up, then he's just like, oh, I got him.
Yeah.
And he goes for it, but he just, like, since he's, won so many by knockout and stuff, that's just what he always goes to.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he's, like, I guess he's stubborn, or he just can't, when he's in the octagon, he's maybe training to do the right things, but when he lands a good one, he's like, oh, I'm going to go in for it, and then that results in his opponent, beating him to the punch, and that being the end of his night.
So I think that leaves him in a pretty unique position, doesn't it? Because I don't think anyone would blame anyone else on the planet for losing a fight to Rafael Assunção. He's one of the most complete and, like, well put together fighters on the roster. So, like, anybody can lose to Rafael Assunção on any given night, right? But I think Garbrandt's in this unique position where there's one specific way that he can't lose. If he gets taken down and submitted, I don't think that says anything too damning about him, other than maybe he should have fought a little bit lower ranked of a guy for his comeback. But if he loses with that same counter again, while he's loading up on the right hand, that goes from just being, just not your night to, are you done? Like, is this, we're calling it on the career now, because you have demonstrated since 2017 that you can't adapt to this one single counter to your main weapon.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, you just do the same thing. Like, like at that point, it really is like time to reconsider things. Like, you obviously you should have been reconsidering things, but it's really, if that does happen, it's like, it's mind-blowing, and it's also like a good possibility, but it's like, what the fuck? Like, sorry, but it's like, how can someone, like you said, be so technical and show so much fight IQ in one fight, and then just go from that to just throwing it all down the drain? Because Assunção, like you said, like he's got a lot of experience. He's got 27 fights, 27 wins, 7 losses. Cody has 11 wins and 3 losses. So Assunção has like a lot more experience, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you're saying, he's definitely like He's a very talented fighter. So,
and also not exactly known for the knockout, right?
It's quite scary, actually, when you think about it.
Like, there's so much at stake here. There's so much at stake here for Garbrandt. And he refuses to fight anyone outside of the top 5, which I respect, but you know, at some point you need a little gimme fight here, you know?
Yeah. All right. Like, honestly, I'm gonna say something I'm thinking might happen. I think Cody might come out. I'm hoping he fights a little smarter and gets a nice TKO in the second round.
Yeah?
TKO or knockout. Yeah. I think we're going to see some better movement out of Cody, and we're actually going to see his boxing that, you know, he has such nice hands. I think I hope we're going to see that. That's what I'm hoping, and maybe we can see him get another knockout. That's my wish for Cody Garbrandt this Saturday.
Well, I mean, I wish for him to get back in the winning column too, but this is a tall order for him, and unless he comes in and we see the Cody Garbrandt that fought Dominic Cruz, I think it's going to be real tough.
Agreed.
So I'm gonna have to stick with Assunção, because the only people he's lost to is he got knocked down by Marlon Moraes and choked out, and then he lost a unanimous decision to Corey Sandhagen. And to me, those two guys are guys where, you know,
they both lost to Dillashaw too. So,
and they both lost to Dillashaw, but even then, like Dillashaw, it was a decision. You know, like Assunção is a very good survivor, right? Like, he's very good at, if he needs to slow, he's very good at controlling the pace, and if he needs to, he's someone who more often than not can. Even if he can't implement his own offense, he can survive until the decision, right? Which is, to me, like, again, we're relying on a Cody Garbrandt that we've only seen one time. Like, he's gonna, you know, tactically outpoint Assunção to a decision victory. I mean, I wouldn't bet on it, you know, which sucks because it's like, if this is the Cody Garbrandt of old, this should be you know, no problem, really. Like, to be frank, if this is a Cody Garbrandt that fought Dominic Cruz, I wouldn't really have a second thought about this. This segment of talking about this fight would be about 5 minutes long. But Cody Garbrandt is such a wild card, it's really hard for me to invest in that. I think Assunção is going to take it. I think this is going to be an Assunção night. Like,
Assunção, like, you know, he's been beat a couple times, but then there's Cody where it's like the way he's lost is just, it's so hard to, you know, know what's gonna, what product's gonna be in that cage when Cody comes to fight. So
well, and Assunção gets hurt too. Like, Assunção doesn't have the greatest chin. I almost see Garbrandt hurting him and then doing the same thing where he hurts him, goes a little bit too hard. Assunção defends well, recollects himself, and hits him with the counter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Very tough.
I really hope we do not see that for the fourth time, but we'll find. It's going to be an interesting one, a coin flip. Not a coin flip, I guess, but it's going to be an interesting fight.
All right, we'll move on to the higher-ranked bantamweights that are farther down the card. Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen.
Neck tattoos.
It's because they don't have neck tattoos. That's true.
Yeah, get a neck tattoo, make the poster look cool.
That's very true. That's true. Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen. What do you think? I think this is probably one of the most interesting fights on the card to me.
This is gonna be a sweet fight. Big fan of both these guys. Aljamain to me has a weird fighting style, like very interesting fighting style.
I think Aljamain sort of evolved his striking, and to me it looks a lot like Sandhagen's. To me, like, the finished product of what Aljamain's striking has become reminds me a lot of what Sandhagen does in there with his length and his reach.
Yeah, like it's very interesting seeing the way he's changed in his last couple fights. It's been a lot, like it's been very entertaining to watch. And
well, that performance he put against Rivera was incredible. Like that's one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that was awesome. The leg kicks and the way that ended was beautiful. Him screaming.
Yeah, and he's got one over Munoz too. So, man, this is a tough fight to call because they both kind of do the same thing to their opponents, and they've both done it to really, really high level guys, really successfully.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Sandhagen has that win over Assunção, but Assunção's beaten Sterling. Of course, it was before Sterling's reinvention here, but you know what I would have to say?
What?
I really want Aljamain to implement his grappling, because I think he's got a very clear grappling advantage. And I think Sandhagen has been doing this type of striking more often for more of his career. He's probably honed it to a greater degree. I think if they stay standing, I think Sandhagen's going to outstrike Sterling. I think the key to this fight for Sterling is really mixing everything together, mixing in takedowns, mixing in grappling, and trying to keep as much control on the ground as he can. That's my take on this one.
Yeah. I would agree because I'd say Sandhagen, you know, he has like the cleaner striking of the two, and then Aljo with his wrestling background. But I don't know. I just feel like Sandhagen would be. I don't know. I just feel like he's gonna be really good on his back for some reason. I don't know why. He just seems like the type of guy that is gonna be quick and tricky on the ground.
Mm-hmm. And I think he's got more creative striking. Like he puts it together in more unique ways. You can tell that he's practiced that style of striking more, whereas Aljamain is still sort of, it's very effective and it's very well done and it's very disciplined, but you can tell he's going through sort of rote, like numbered, okay, now you throw the front kick, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah, for sure. So
it's kind of random.
It is. Random. So who do you got? I'm having a real trouble picking someone in this fight.
I'm gonna go with Aljamain Sterling. Although like Sandhagen, like he's a great fighter, he's got like beautiful, like nice striking. I think like Aljo's style, like his movement's gonna be a bit odd for him, and I think also like you said, maybe just the wrestling background's going to help him out in this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a question of fight IQ. It's going to be all up to whether or not Aljamain lets him fight the fight where he wants to. If he decides he's going to out-kickbox him, I think he's going to have a real bad night. But I also think there's something to be said with how much more UFC experience that Aljo's had.
Yeah.
So if it comes down to a question of fight IQ, I sort of feel like Corey Sandhagen, this might be his performance. You remember a couple years ago when Aljamain finally fought Moraes and then got knocked out and he got kind of sent back down the roster and had to work his way back up?
Yeah.
I feel like that's where Sandhagen is now. I feel like he's about to have that fight where he sort of gets sent back down the ladder and has to work his way back up with a more complete game. I think Aljamain's fight IQ and grappling ability is really going to be the difference in this fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So we're both got Sterling on that one.
Yeah.
And then one of these, I'm pretty sure we're going to disagree about this next one. Neil Magny versus Anthony Rocco Martin.
Okay. I'm going to say one thing right now.
Yeah.
Neil Magny wins that fight.
Yeah, I think so too, but I'm just such a Rocco Martin fan. And I don't think...
Are you ready?
Yeah, it's one of the most read articles we have on the site right now is my article on Rocco Martin, right before the Maia fight, and then that was a huge letdown.
That was a brutal one.
But he's come back. He's got a unanimous decision win over Ramazan Ameev.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time investing in Rocco because he's got everything that he should. Do you know what I mean? Like everything that it takes where he should be. How do I say this? He's got all the pieces, but it's really just he's a fighter that needs to be completely put together, and I don't think I've seen that, at least in 2019 from him. And if that's where you are as a fighter, Neil Magny is not the guy to be fighting, because he's the guy who finds where things don't fit, and he puts a wedge in it and splits them. That's how Neil Magny wins fights.
Yeah. And Magny, too, in his last fight, who was it against? It was on the Adesanya Romero card.
I'll bring it up right now. It was an impressive win. It was someone that I thought he was going to lose to, I believe.
Yeah. It was...
Jingliang. Yeah, Jingliang Li. Yeah. That was a very impressive performance.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Super impressive. And also, like you were saying about Anthony Rocco Martin, like, you know, like in his fight with Damian Maia, it was such a letdown just because he seemed like he was so promising going into that fight.
Yeah.
But then it was almost, he bought in to, you know, like, oh, like I'm going to beat Damian Maia and then I'll be in the top.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go win the title. You know, it wasn't like he was like focused on the fight. He's focused on the other fights that are going to happen after.
Definitely. And it was the same sort of thing that happened to Masvidal when Masvidal fought Maia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I can avoid this one thing and I'll be able to edge the win, but, you know, it's not as easy as you think.
Yeah, honestly, just now, like, just on the fact that I remembered that Jingliang Li, like that, the fact that he put on that performance against Li Jingliang, I have a really hard time betting on Rocco Martin because, to me, what we're talking about, how Rocco's this guy who's just waiting to sort of put it all together into a cohesive game plan. Lee was someone who I thought did that, you know, had done that in his last fight and was bringing that momentum into the Magny fight, and Magny just completely stifled him.
Yeah. Shut him down completely.
Yeah. So even if this is Martin's put it together moment, I have a really hard time seeing him pulling it off against Magny.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I think Magny takes this one. And yeah.
I agree, but
Magny takes this one. I just think that Magny I think he's just such a smart guy and such a smart fighter that it really just, like, you know, it leads to such growth in between fights, and like, you know, he has losses and everything, but he seems to take them well and always come back and showing some new technique, and it's awesome.
He's just one of those guys that has been doing it so long, you know. And he's the definition of like journeyman, but in the most complimentary way. He's the guy who's been everywhere, seen everything, done everything. You know, either of us could point out like Magny's, what's his strongest, you know, tool. Really? I don't really know if he has a strongest tool. It's the fact that he can use any tool that he needs to at any time. That makes him so dangerous.
He has so many tools in the bag.
So
I don't know what he's gonna pull.
I would say this would have to be a near perfect fight from Martin. Yeah.
Agreed. You want to move on to the next fight on the card?
Yeah.
This is a good one.
This will be good. This is
an interesting one. Also, Brian Kelleher. Sorry, I'm gonna skip. Like, Brian Kelleher called out O'Malley. I wonder what the decision was with that, to let Eddie Wineland step in and fight O'Malley.
Well,
do you think that was just a ranking situation at the time, or?
Well, Wineland is higher in the rankings, and he's also kind of a bigger name. And I'm pretty sure before Kelleher just got a knockout in one of the Jacksonville cards, right? He just absolutely knocked someone clean out with a hammer fist, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It was
Hunter
a sweet
Azure.
fight.
Yeah, Hunter Azure. I remember that.
But after that knockout, he got on the mic and he said, "Hey Dana, like roll up Sugar Sean and let me smoke him."
Yeah.
So I liked that call out. I was like, "Yeah, that's a good fight to make." But I was just wondering maybe if they're making them get another win or what, because they're on the same cards. That's kind of interesting. But I got a little sidetracked there.
I honestly don't really understand the logic behind it either, other than maybe they made it beforehand, before the call-out happened.
I saw that, too.
Guess so. Because, Wineland's only coming off a knockout over Grigory Popov. But he's coming off But again, just 2 unanimous decision losses to Alejandro Perez and John Dodson, who are legit guys in the division. So I think, for my money, I think a win over Eddie Wineland is more impressive than a win over Brian Kelleher.
At this point, yeah.
I would say that.
Enough. Definitely.
What do you think of
longer and stuff?
Yeah, he's been around longer. He's more proven, and I think we need to constantly be moving O'Malley up so that he doesn't stagnate. We're not quite sure really how good he is yet, right?
Yeah. Have you seen Sean O'Malley's haircut for this fight?
He made it all rainbow, right? He went Takashi with it.
Yeah, it's like a clown wig.
Yeah.
Literally like a clown wig. It's pretty funny.
Bablanchi 6'9".
Yeah.
Bablanchi 25.
I'm really excited to see O'Malley fighting so soon.
Yeah. What do you think about his statement where he's saying, "I'm going to need a lot more money if I'm going to be fighting higher ranked guys"? What do you think of that? He seems content to just sit and fight.
I mean, you just want to keep picking off guys and get paid the same. But I mean, if you're able to take out the guys the way that he's been doing it, I don't see what's the issue with giving the guys some more money.
Yeah, he's generating quite a bit of hype.
Yeah, but it's also just focus on getting the wins and getting the finishes you've been getting, and that should come. That seems to be how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But also, again, the pay should, in my opinion, it should just go up. It's crap. You guys deserve more.
I agree, just across the board. Do you think he's going to have trouble with Wineland, or because I don't know if either of us would make the argument that Wineland's going to win this fight.
No, I guarantee you that this is a knockout, first round knockout.
Really?
Or we see Sean O'Malley's ground game. This is definitely going to be a knockout. I'm going to say a spinning back kick or something crazy.
I think this is going to be O'Malley's. When these hot prospects, they're moving up and eventually they get a fight against someone who they can't just style on, and it ends up being a lot more difficult of a fight than it seemed like it should have been.
Yep.
To me, I think this is going to be that fight for O'Malley. I think Wineland's going to give him some and it's going to be one of the two. He's either going to give him some problems on the feet, or we're going to see just how good O'Malley's striking is, and he's going to put a clinic on a veteran. Either way.
Sounds good.
It's going to be a good fight, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. We'll find out what happens. I like how we both have completely opposite. After that one, I'm like, he's going to roll right over him.
I don't know. I don't know.
Let's see what happens. I'm definitely overlooking the guy. So.
What about Chase Hooper versus Alex Caceres? That's
a very interesting matchup. You got obviously a veteran, Bruce Leroy, fighting a young gun, Chase Hooper. How old is Chase Hooper?
Oh, he's
21?
He's really young. Let me see.
He's 20 or 21?
He's 20 years old, yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I would say I like how we're almost opposite on this one too. I think this is going to be what you predicted for the Wineland O'Malley fight. I think this is going to be Chase Hooper absolutely styling on him.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Honestly, man, like I know he's had a couple win in the UFC, but he got a win by submission. I remember that. I don't know too much about the guy to say too much, and also Alex Caceres I'm not too sure about. So I'm gonna kind of roll with what you're thinking on this fight.
All right, cool. I think this will be a coming out. I think this will be a coming out performance for Hooper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
I think so.
Do you think it's gonna be like you think he'll get a finish, or you think this is gonna be just like a good showing for him?
I think it's just a really good showing. I think it's going to be a really... It's so hard to knock Caceres out with that afro. If you punch his hair, it's like he's wearing a helmet. So I'd say it's more just going to be like... People are going to look at this and be like, wow, he just dominated him, bell to bell.
For sure. Question, did you realize that when you clicked on Chase Hooper's name, it said he had a win over Luis Gomez?
I did see that, yeah.
Kind of funny.
There's so many Luis Gomez's. That's why that comedian has to put the J in his name.
Yeah.
That's why it's Luis J. Gomez. Luis Gomez for Hispanic people is like being named John Smith.
Good to know.
All right, Gerald Meerschaert's fighting. That'll be fun, but I don't know Ivy, so that's all I have to say about that. Anything?
I'm saying Meerschaert submission. I love Meerschaert.
Yeah, same. Honestly. That's what I think.
It's awesome. I love the videos. Have you seen the videos of him playing his saxophone, dude?
No.
So funny. He's got like a handlebar mustache. He's wearing like jean shorts cut off. It's hilarious.
Oh, man. All right, now, this one's another one. Cody Stamann versus Brian Kelleher. This will be a great fight. There's a lot of good fights near the bottom of this card, actually.
Yeah. Holy.
Let's pick. Which one of these do you want to talk about? Cody Stamann versus Brian Kelleher. Jussier Formiga versus Alex Perez. Alonzo Menefelt versus Devin Clark. Or Evan Dunham versus Herbert Burns.
Let's talk a bit more about the Kelleher fight here. Honestly, just after that last fight he had, I'm really looking forward to see him fight again. Honestly, that was a very entertaining fight, and that was just a nice knockout. He had like the counter hook. It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, but that being said, I think Stamann runs over him. I think Stamann absolutely steamrolls him.
I'm very interested to see, just because honestly, Kelleher really surprised me his last time out. So I'm rooting for the guy. I want to see him get some momentum going.
I mean, he surprised me, but I expected him to lose to the guy coming off of the Contender Series, right? And then he surprised me by not losing. And then he takes that and jumps, like, this is very clearly a late notice fight. He takes Cody Stamann, who's number 10 in the world. Yeah. You know, Topology has Kelleher ranked as number 99 in the world. Yeah, I'm really hot on Kelleher too, because I loved that knockout and I loved his call out after, and I generally just love his attitude. Like, I'm always going to be a Brian Kelleher fan, but I think that he's kind of one of these dudes who's always going to be hanging out outside of the top 15. I realistically don't see him breaking into the rankings ever.
Okay. Interesting.
Whereas I think Stamann's a real talent.
It'll be interesting to see him fight like Cody Statham, how do you even say it?
Stamann,
there we go. Yeah. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's gonna be I think it'll be a stand-up fight for the most part.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see what's gonna happen in this one.
I think that Stamann could probably win this fight exclusively with his jab. His jab is so good.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. All right, I'll be looking out for this one. I'm really excited for this fight, honestly.
That'll be I think, honestly, but Stamen versus Kelleher and Sterling versus Sandhagen, I think, are my most anticipated fights on the card.
Sounds good. Interesting. Oh, that's a banger, too.
This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll skip the flyweight one and talk about Menefeld. What can we really say about Menefeld other than I'm just excited to watch him fight every single time?
Yeah, like, I don't know, I'm just pumped. Like, even this Devin Clark guy, like, just two big guys. You know what they're going to do when they're in there. It's probably going to be a quick night.
Well, I know what Devin Clark's going to do. He's going to try and press Menefeld up against the cage and hold him there, because that's the Devin Clark special.
Is it?
Yeah,
Am I thinking of the wrong guy?
Devin Clark's the guy with the, maybe I am, but I'm pretty sure he's the guy with the bear paw tattoo on his calf, and he just holds guys against the cage whole fight.
Yeah, his name's Brown Bear, so yeah. Yep. Okay, maybe not. But Alonzo Menifield, anyway, he's a fucking powerhouse, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him get in there. And hopefully, I think he's going to be too strong for Devin Clark, honestly. I know nothing about Devin Clark, but I don't want to see him stall against the cage.
I'm looking at Devin Clark's history here, and almost every single one of his wins are by decision.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting, yeah.
I'm going Alonzo on this one. I think Alonzo's going to take his head off.
I agree.
Like, I seriously think Menefield's one of the future contenders in the light heavyweight.
Yeah, I agree.
All right,
He's
so
like a young Rumble.
Keep an eye on that one. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, dude. That's actually a great parallel to draw. What about Herbert Burns versus Evan Dunham? You excited to see Gilbert Burns' little brother?
Oh yeah, that'll be awesome. Is this his first fight in the UFC?
No, his last fight. Do you remember Nate Landwehr, the guy who just fought Elkins?
Yeah.
So he beat that guy. He beat Nate.
Okay, cool.
TKO'd him, I believe.
Oh, interesting. Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to see that. I mean, I'm sure he's very talented if he's related to Gilbert Burns.
Yeah, right?
I'm sure he's learned a few things from him.
I think Evan Dunham's a little bit past it, though.
Yeah.
I think he's at the point where he's getting out physicalitied.
Yeah.
Even if he's got better technical prowess. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would go Hilbert Burns on this one for sure.
Hilbert?
Herbert. Herbert. Whatever it is.
Let's go Gibbler.
I'll go Burnsy.
Yeah, me too. What about Formiga versus Perez? This is the last one we'll chat about. Flyweight fight. This should be incredibly exciting, but I expect Formiga to take it.
Honestly, yeah. I don't really know Alex Perez, but I think Formiga will take it.
Alex Perez... I'm pretty sure he almost beat Benavidez, didn't he?
Sure. Is this maybe his...
Oh, no. No, you know what it was? It was Alex Perez was the guy who got knocked out 2 times by Joseph Benavidez. That's what it was.
Okay. Didn't Formiga also get knocked out twice by Joseph Benavidez?
Yeah, but not in the same fight.
Oh, this guy literally got knocked out twice in the same fight. Wow.
Yeah, it was like a bad stoppage. Like the ref didn't stop it. He woke up and then Joey knocked him out again.
Wow, that's crazy.
But yeah, I'm going to have to go with Formiga on this. He's just too established, too well put together.
Yeah, he's just had too many fights with such high-level competition. I think that'll help him get back in the win column.
But before we say that, what was Formiga's last win? Because it wasn't to Benavidez.
No, he lost to Benavidez.
And he lost to someone else, too.
He lost at UFC 215.
To Brandon Moreno.
Oh, wait, what? He won to what?
He lost to Brandon Moreno, and he beat Figueiredo.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Maybe Perez has a chance then. Perez. I wouldn't say Perez is too far off skill-wise from Moreno, but Moreno has been one of those guys who, again, he's finally putting it together. Yeah, you know what? I'm going Formiga, without a doubt. It's Formiga.
No, I'm definitely going Formiga for this one. I mean, yeah, I just think he'll take it just based off experience, and he's going to be hungry to get back in that win column. So.
Right on. Well, that's the card. Thank you for joining me today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It was good to be back.
It's made my ankle feel a lot better chatting fights with you.
Yeah, exactly. How's it feeling today?
Pretty good. Pretty good, actually.
Yeah. That's good.
Not a whole lot of pain today.
Yeah.
I can feel it bleeding a little bit, and it sucks that I can't check it, but
that's crazy.
Pretty good.
Yeah, falling out a glass window is pretty devastating, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
Fuck. It's insane, man.
Yeah. Well, if you guys have listened this far and you don't know what happened, you go back to my Gilbert Burns, Tyron Woodley review podcast that came out yesterday. You can check that out. I tell the whole story.
Yeah.
I almost died, you guys.
And he's still making the time to come record this podcast for you.
Sponsors, get at me. I'm dedicated.
I wish I knew a Band-Aid brand. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. That'd be a great sponsor. Polysporin.
Yeah, tensor bandage.
Polysporin and tempered glass.
It is selling companies. Yeah, if any flip-flop companies are looking for a podcast sponsor, hit us up.
Yeah, I need something that won't make me roll through a window. I mean, well, I'm glad we're at the point where we can laugh this now, but glad you're still here, Griff. Thank you. It's good to be here.
But yeah, it was a pleasure doing this today, dude.
Always is.
Yeah, I can't wait to see these fights on Saturday. And, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks for coming on, and of course, you let me know whenever you want to be on the show. You're the perpetual co-host in perpetuity.
Yes. Sounds good, brother. That was fun.
All right, keep your stick on the ice.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you.